All right, how's everybody doing? Welcome to You Don't Know Ball. And I'm cheesing, man, as you can tell, because we got a fun episode for you guys today. It's going to be so much fun. So what we're doing is we're ranking every number one overall draft pick since 2000 in a tier list style. I know tier lists are popular. I enjoy tier lists. Hopefully you guys do too. Let's have a lot of fun today, man. Let's go. But before we get started, I'll give you guys a rundown of what each tier is so you're not confused. All right, so for the worst tier, as you might have figured, we got bust. Second to worst tier, we got underperforming. Right there in the middle, we got average. Above average, we got star. Top tier, we got legendary player. Let's get into it, man. All right, starting out here with the first overall pick in 2000, we got Courtney Brown. For me personally, I'm sorry, Courtney. You got to go into the bust tier. When we pull up Courtney Brown's career stats, look, he never had achieved any recordable accolade, award, no Pro Bowls, no All-Pro selections, no Defensive Player of the Years, Defensive Rookie of the Years. Unfortunately, the accolade list is just blank. His best season was a 6-sack season. Granted, an interior D lineman, but still, you want to see more production than that out of the first overall pick. 16 tackles for loss the rookie year. You would have thought, hey, Courtney Brown's going to have an electric, amazing career. Just a lot of regression ever since that rookie year. And unfortunately, was out of the league by 2006, so only 5 years in the league. About as bare as the career could get when you're the first overall pick, and therefore we got to put Courtney Brown into the bust tier. All right, on to 2001's first overall pick, Michael Vick. Honestly, the more I look at this, Michael Vick is at a very interesting spot because he has a fair amount of accolades, but when you look at the stats too, he never achieved anything groundbreaking or anything amazing. Yes, obviously, Michael Vick is electric, great running with the football, as well as that he had a great arm. Nothing groundbreaking when you put anything all the way together. But the accolades, 4-time Pro Bowl, 2010 Comeback Player of the Year, 2010 Burt Bell Award winner, played 13 years in the league, 3,303 passing yards was the highest he ever achieved, which to me is, for a quarterback that was drafted number one overall, decently underwhelming. And then 21 touchdowns was the most touchdowns he threw for in a season. Did keep the interceptions down to 6 that season. But again, this was kind of more of an anomaly season, and Michael Vick really just never had any numbers that were eye-popping. Like I'm saying, we remember Michael Vick to be fun, flashy. He was a great player, but never anything amazing. So for Michael Vick, we're going to put him into the star tier. All right, on to the 2002 number one overall pick, brother of Derek Carr, David Carr. Now, unfortunately, there's just no easy way to say it. We got to put David Carr into the bust tier. Career record of 23-56. No award accolades. Most touchdowns he threw in a season was 16, albeit when he threw 16 touchdowns, it was with 14 interceptions as well. He only had 2 seasons in his career where he had thrown for more touchdowns than interceptions. When you're brought in to be the guy for a franchise like Houston, and you literally don't even win Rookie of the Year, don't take your team to the playoffs, or out of there by year 6, and you never redeem yourself, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, like I said, there's just no easy way to put it. David Carr, he's in the bust here. On to the 2003 number one overall pick, Carson Palmer. So Carson Palmer came on the scene here, average rookie year, but then in year 2, started lighting it up. 68% adjusted completion percentage, 3,836 yards, 32 touchdowns, league leading, and then 12 interceptions. Finished 5th in voting for MVP that year. So you would hear that and you'd say, well, Carson Palmer just hit the ground running. He must have had an amazing career. Was always a very solid quarterback. But unfortunately, after he peaked that year, he just never had another year like that. Actually, even just 2 years later in 2007, he had 20 interceptions, league leading for that. Carson Palmer did finish a 3-time Pro Bowler, had a couple winning seasons with Cincinnati, and then played really good in 2015 with the Arizona Cardinals. But other than that, Carson Palmer did absolutely nothing groundbreaking. And I would say all in all, he had a pretty average career for being the number one overall pick. So with that said, we're going to throw him right here. First player in our average tier. Onto the 2004 number one overall pick, Eli Manning. So you look at Eli Manning's numbers. Again, nothing incredibly eye-popping. Only a 4-time Pro Bowler. But we know what Eli Manning did. Arguably the most legendary player in Giants franchise history. 2-time Super Bowl MVP, beating the GOAT, Tom Brady twice in the Super Bowl, 7 different winning seasons, and his 7 different winning seasons as his tenure as the Giants starting quarterback. Look, like I'm saying, when you just look at the numbers, Eli Manning's career, to an extent even, could be underwhelming. Had 3 years where he led the league in interceptions. Handful of years he didn't even throw 60% completion percentage. Not one All-Pro selection. But regardless of all that, when you take in the weight of what those 2 Super Bowls meant, the 2 Super Bowl MVPs against one of, if not the greatest football team ever, and another great Patriots team, the other one, you're just a hater if you say otherwise. Eli Manning belongs in the legendary player tier and first player to go on this legendary tier. On to the 2005 number one overall pick, Alex Smith. So let me just preface everything else I'm going to say. Number one, as an NFL community, we love Alex Smith, right? Alex Smith, a model of just getting back after it when it looks like you have no hope, fighting. We love Alex Smith and what he stands for, what he's done, the amount of resilience he has, hope he's shown us. It comes down to the fact of just that we're talking about he was the number one overall pick. And how did he stand up to that as the number one overall pick? He was a 3-time Pro Bowler and he won the Comeback Player of the Year much later into his career, 2020. Wasn't a Pro Bowler until 2013 in his 9th year in the league. Might I add though, his first year on a different team than the team who drafted him, on the Chiefs in this case, when obviously he was drafted to the Niners. When he went to the Chiefs, he certainly certainly did turn his career around in a very positive way. This is where all his Pro Bowl selections had occurred. I don't think there's any doubt that playing under Andy Reid is a major benefit for any quarterback. In my opinion, his best season came in 2017, where he threw for 4,042 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. When you combine Alex Smith's accolades and where he was drafted, I feel like I have to put him into the average player tier. But like I'm saying, Alex Smith has a lot of great things about his career that we'll never forget. On to the 2006 #1 overall pick, Mario Williams. There's no doubt about it. Mario Williams definitely had a good career. 4-time Pro Bowl, 1-time All-Pro selection, played for 11 seasons, so was awarded an accolade almost half of his career. Best season was 14.5 sacks and 19 tackles for a loss, and that happened in 2014, which was his only All-Pro selection. 5 seasons in his career where he was over a 10-sack player, 6 seasons in his career where he had over 10 tackles for a loss, 8 seasons where he had double-digit quarterback hits. Not only that, but Mario Williams was a great player for not only the Texans, but also the Buffalo Bills. Mario Williams had a very good career. However, obviously I can't put him in the legendary tier. So for that, we're going to put him to the star player tier. On to the 2007 #1 overall pick, Jamarcus Russell. Now I'm gonna be honest for a sec. Y'all really probably don't even need me to do this one. So Jamarcus Russell coming out, highly touted prospect. Next big thing. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's super tall. Got a lot of size so he can run. And that just never happened. Finished his career with a 7-18 record, 18 touchdowns, 23 interceptions, 52.1% completion percentage. And notoriously, Jamarcus Russell was just an uncoachable guy. He just didn't really care. You know, once he got paid, just wasn't a job to him. It was kind of more of a hobby that's making him money. Didn't take it seriously. Career never panned out. That's what Jamarcus Russell is notoriously known for. But, you know, nonetheless, LSU legend. The career didn't pan out in the NFL. He's arguably the biggest NFL bust of all time. You have to put him to the bust tier, obviously. The 2008 #1 overall draft pick, Jake Long. So I'd say Jake Long is actually one of the more interesting players on this whole list, because when you take a look at Jake Long's career, also the first tackle we've talked about on this list, his career starts off in a very positive trajectory. 4 Pro Bowls, an All-Pro selection in his 3rd year. You know, if you're watching the start of his career, you had to be thinking to yourself, man, this guy Jake Long, you know, he took the risk on the tackle first overall. Hey, he's panning out. He looks like he's going to be a legendary player. Then in 2012, injuries start to happen. And Jake Long just never plays consistently again, struggles to get back on the field. By 2016, he's not even back out there. He's not even playing, and he's retired. Jake Long puts me into a really weird position here. The more I think about it, I can't just call him an average player. At the least, he was a star player. He very well could have been on his way to being legendary tier if the injuries just never happened. Nonetheless, though, Jake Long definitely stepped up to the plate, came out ready to play, had a great first 4 years of his career. And if it wasn't for the things that happened, I think he would have had a much better career. Onto the 2009 #1 overall pick, Matthew Stafford. So like a few other guys, Matthew Stafford, at least to me, feels like he's putting me in kind of a weird position here. Because if you just look at his accolades, 1-time Pro Bowler, 2011 Comeback Player of the Year, and then the Super Bowl champ, which obviously was a great Super Bowl run with the Rams. The majority of the beginning of the career, not a lot going on, right? Then you look at the stats and you're like, hold on a minute. Okay, rookie year, underwhelming, not a lot going on there. The big injury in the sophomore year, but then he comes out his 3rd year, goes 10-6, goes 5,038 yards, 41 touchdowns, 16 interceptions. The year after that, 4,900 yards. The year after that, almost 4,700 yards, 4,000, 4,000, 4,000, 4,000. Throwing a lot of touchdowns, keeping the interception number not too high. There are a lot of years here. Matt Stafford totally could have been a Pro Bowl player, arguably been an All-Pro type of player. I think playing on the Lions did hurt him a lot in terms of getting Pro Bowl votes. I can't put Matthew Stafford into the legendary tier. That would be pushing it. But he very comfortably is going into our star player tier. Onto the 2010 first overall pick, Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford absolutely fits into that category of guys where if you're watching him that first year, they probably tricked you a little bit. Numbers weren't anything crazy. 18 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, 3,512 yards, 60% completion percentage, and he won Offensive Rookie of the Year. You know, you're saying to yourself, all right, well, we got something to build on. We see the arm talent. You know, this is going to work. It absolutely was not going to work. Injury happened also sophomore year. And after that, things just never came together. Best year would have happened in 2016, where he threw for 3,877 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Did that throwing at a league high 71.6% completion percentage. So again, even you come back to that and you're like, you know, maybe we got something here. Like maybe we can make the Sam Bradford thing work, right? And then sure enough, out of the league for good, 3 years later, never made a return. So I had to think about this for a sec. For Sam Bradford, I was about to put him in the bust tier, but I think to myself, I'm like, all right, you know what? Dealt with the injuries. Never was absolutely horrible. Just certainly never performed up to the standard that he had at the #1 overall pick. So with that said, Sam Bradford's going to be the first guy for me I'm going to put into the underperforming tier. Onto the 2011 first overall pick, Cam Newton. Now, I think Cam Newton's another one of these guys where I think we all can kind of agree what tier they're going to go in. So with Cam, you got 3-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro, 2015 NFL MVP, Rookie of the Year in 2011, taking the Panthers to the Super Bowl 1 time. Unfortunately, lost Super Bowl, as we all know. I think Cam also very much fits into that Jake Long category of things. They actually are very similar. Beginning of the career was electric, but then when the injuries start to happen, it just all fell off the rails. You know, even rookie year, the thing with Cam was supposed to be he's going to struggle throwing the ball coming in. That's going to take time. Hey, he threw for over 4,000 yards the rookie year, more touchdowns than interceptions. And then by the MVP year, you got him throwing for 3,900 basically, 35 touchdowns, 10 10 interceptions. And then also we knew what Cam does with his feet. That year specifically 636 rushing yards and then 10 rushing touchdowns as well. So truly there was a point where Cam Newton was almost unstoppable. But when we take Cam's peak and even just the MVP award, he couldn't go lower than the star player tier. That's exactly where we're comfortably fitting him in right here. Onto the 2012 first overall pick, Andrew Luck. Majority of his career was just out there balling. Came in rookie year, already a Pro Bowl player. Stats were nothing crazy, but he showed you, hey, look, I'm gonna be the guy. Just give me some time. 4,374 passing yards, 23 touchdowns, and 18 interceptions. And this was just right out the gate rookie year. Year after that, you go down a little bit in the passing yards, go down a little bit in the touchdowns, but there's a huge gap between the touchdowns and interceptions. So we started getting those turnovers down a lot. But then in 2014, you get that huge jump. 4,760 passing yards, 40 touchdowns league leading, and then just 16 interceptions to go with it. Year after this, big injury, but then he comes back again and shows us, hey, I'm still Andrew Luck. I'm still out here dropping big numbers. Over 4,000 passing yards and over 30 touchdowns in both the next two seasons. However, as we know, he never came back the same from the injury in 2015, and he was just getting injured after that. O-line wasn't protecting him. He didn't have the same vision at the front office. So he said, you know what? My body's more important than football. The NFL fans, media, we loved Andrew Luck. He was, again, a guy I look up to, a lot of good things about the man. Unfortunately, the career just didn't work where he was able to stay in for as long as we would have liked. But for the short time he was in the league, star player, lots of fun to watch. If he had a longer career, I have no doubt he would have fit himself in the legendary tier. But as I already said, he's going to have to be in the star tier for the fact that the career just wasn't as long as it could have been. Onto the 2013 number one overall pick, Eric Fisher. I'm looking at Eric Fisher and I'm not going to lie to you guys, I'm struggling to think what tier I'm going to put him in. Got a two-time Pro Bowler, one-time Super Bowl champ. With tackles, it's a little bit weird. You know, obviously tackles aren't really taking number one overall a lot. How do I gauge my expectations for them, right? Well, for starters, when you look at Eric Fisher's frame, you understand why he was taking number one overall, right? He's got a massive wingspan. He's 6'7", big guy, 315. As long as you've been a Pro Bowl type guy, even once or twice in your career, you weren't hurt for a bunch of it. And especially in Eric Fisher's case, you got the Super Bowl to go along with it. Yeah, Eric Fisher never panned out to a star player. He's almost kind of in between like where the star and average tier is, but unfortunately that just isn't going to be a thing. So with all that said, I'm going to have to fit him into the average tier. Won a Super Bowl with the team that drafted him, and at the end of the day, that's a pretty big accomplishment. So if there was another tier in between star and average, I think he might be the only player that would have fit right in there. Onto the 2014 number one overall pick, Jadeveon Clowney. Do I still remember the hype of Jadeveon Clowney coming out? And I would have been a real youngin' back then, but it just goes to show you how much hype he had. South Carolina Jadeveon Clowney was just different. Unfortunately, NFL Jadeveon Clowney just did not pan out to be the same player as college Jadeveon Clowney. The biggest accomplishment he's had so far in his career is to be a Pro Bowler, and he's done that 3 times. Obviously, his career's not over. Time's running out. He can't play forever. 30 years old right now for reference. Jadeveon Clowney, more than anything, has just never panned out as like an elite pass rusher in the NFL. He is a terrific run stopper. You could even almost argue he's had some years where he could have been the best run stopper in the whole league. He just never has coupled it with an incredible pass rush to become an all-pro player. But you look at his tackles for loss. I mean, he is a tackle for loss machine. Season with 16, season with 21, another season with 16, season with 11 last year, season with 11 2 years ago. A lot of seasons where he gets to the quarterback a lot of QB hits. Year he had 17, year he had 21, another year he had 21, 13, 19. Like Jadeveon Clowney is a very disruptive player. Don't get me wrong. The sack numbers just never showed up. You know, considering he was drafted to be an upper echelon pass rusher, in some ways he may have disappointed a little bit, but don't get me wrong. This is what I'm trying to get at here. All in all, Jadeveon Clowney is still a very good edge rusher in the league. I can't put him any lower than star player. When you couple in the expectations, having him at star does feel a little bit weird, but this isn't all about that. At the end of the day, this is about how you performed. And the 3 Pro Bowls, you know what? Star player to me. Onto the 2015 number one overall pick, Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston was undoubtedly another guy who probably really tricked a lot of people that rookie year. As we still know Jameis for today, you would have said to yourself like, all right, you know what? Yeah, he makes a few Jameis moments. Fuck it, he's down there. I'm going to take a risk and it's not going to reward me. You look at him and you're kind of like, that was a bonehead moment. But again, he was young back then. And he still was showing us those flashes. The big arm, dropping the ball in the breadbasket, breaking down coverage quickly, throwing it where it needs to be. He was doing all that stuff, showing you the flashes you want to see from the number one overall pick. For reference, 4,042 passing yards his rookie year, coupled with 22 touchdowns and 15 interceptions on a 58.3% completion percentage. And then even that sophomore year, you're like, all right, you know what? Jameis made a jump, not a big jump, but a big enough jump where you're like, hey, you know, still could be a guy. Then year 3 comes in, it's a regression. Year 4, another regression. In 2019, you got the ever elusive 30 touchdown, 30 interception season above 5,000 yards. So, you know, it's like, hey, look, Jameis is one of the most polarizing, interesting players in league history at this point. No, he can throw it, but it's not always going to be where it needs to be thrown, and he's still going to find a way to put up numbers. This season genuinely made no sense. I remember, especially as a Saints fan, watching them in our division, like, especially when you played him, you never know what to expect. It was actually almost hysterical. And after that year, came over to the Saints, backed us up. Year started with us, showed us a couple flashes, but again, still same Jameis, just not enough consistency. That really has just been Jameis's MO since he entered the league. At the end of the day, Jameis is just a one-time Pro Bowler, and he was taken number one overall. Unfortunately, we got to put Jameis as our second player into the underwhelming player category. Onto the 2016 number one overall pick, got Jared Goff. So we're getting to the guys where, you know, we're still relatively early per se into their career. Not necessarily early with Jared Goff, but maybe let's say like like midway point. You know, Jared Goff, maybe the opposite of a few guys we've talked about so far. He didn't have a good rookie year. He actually had a terrible rookie year. But then the quick turnaround the year afterwards on an upward spiral. So 2016, 0-7, 54.6% completion percentage, 5 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Now, granted, also this was only in 7 games. But then in 2017, sophomore year, goes 11-4, 62% completion percentage, 3,804 passing yards, 28 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. So already by year 2, he's on a 4-to-1 ratio of touchdowns and interceptions. And then year 3, just another huge jump, 4,688 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. After 2019, and then 2020 and 2021, very underwhelming. Wasn't playing up to that same standard. Certainly wasn't playing horrible. But again, he already set the standard where when you're playing under it, we're looking up to, and your number 1 overall pick, we're kind of seeing what's going on here. You know, it gets traded. But you know what? The Lions, at the time, I certainly did not think so, but the Lions were a premier spot for him. First year on the Lions, don't get me wrong, was still underwhelming, but he was showing, you know what? I'm keeping the turnovers down. I'm still figuring out the system. And then last year, Pro Bowl player again. There was 4,438 passing yards, 29 touchdowns, and then back just to the 7 interceptions, keeping the turnovers down. That's exactly what you want to see. Jared Goff's career's kind of been going like this to start off, but I think we're looking back on the upward trajectory again. Obviously, he's nowhere near legendary player tier right now, but Jared Goff certainly fits right in around that star player tier. Star player for the Detroit Lions right now. On to the 2017 first overall pick. Here we got Myles Garrett. So every year minus the rookie year, Myles Garrett has just been a dominant defensive player. And granted, he only started 9 games his rookie year, so the sample size wasn't all the way there. Look, every year after that, and we're talking 5 seasons here, over double-digit sack guy, over double-digit tackles for a loss, over double-digit QB hits. He's a trifecta type edge rusher. He checks all the boxes. Not only that, but he's doing it for a franchise, the Cleveland Browns, that haven't really had a big star player name in a long time. Minus, I would say, Joe Thomas. But I'm talking a real franchise, legendary type player. And I think you might see where I'm headed with this. Myles Garrett, we're still into that midway point, early part of the career, just like Jared Goff. We're getting to that point of this list. The 4-time Pro Bowl, 2-time All-Pro selection. Let's say that this was already the first half of his career, right? Well, if you double this, that means that he's going to finish out with 8 Pro Bowls and 4 All-Pros. And again, that's just a guess. That would just be assuming, but you hopefully get my point. And if a player has a career like that, which it looks like Myles Garrett is going to, I don't think there's any way I couldn't put them into the legendary player tier. Onto the 2018 first overall pick, we got Baker Mayfield. I'll tell you, guys that really tricked me out the gates. If you could go back and get audio me in 2018 or 2019 era, would there be no doubt you hear me saying, yeah, you know, Baker's got some growing to do, but he's the guy. He's the guy for Cleveland. I think a lot of people are probably saying the same thing. Look, obviously it was proven he wasn't the guy for Cleveland. Rookie year, you come out the gate swinging. Throws at an adjusted 64% completion percentage, 3,725 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. He was already basically doubling the touchdowns interception ratio, even though obviously you don't want to see 14 interceptions kind of high. Hey, look, for a rookie, it is what it is, right? And then that sophomore year happened, you start to scratch your head. You're going, whoa. You're like, what's going on here, Baker? Throws for basically 3,800 passing yards again, but then we go down to 22 touchdowns and we're up to 21 interceptions. We only got 1 more touchdown interceptions. It's like, whoa, you know, like what was the big jump here? And then year 3 throws for basically 3,600, but then the 26 touchdowns and then keeps it down with the 8 interceptions. You're like, all right, this would really been right on the era where I'm like, all right, you know, Baker's gonna got it figured out. Like that was the year we'll look back and say that he kind of, you know, started getting it together. And then 2021, where he barely throws for 3,000 yards and then 17 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. Then at this point, the passing yards and the touchdowns just wasn't keeping up with it, not being that productive a player. And again, we're the first overall pick. That's incredibly underwhelming. Like Baker sure as hell is not a bust. He was the 2022 MVP. I kid you not. This website with accolades literally actually has that list that I couldn't stop cheesing. Baker had an awesome rookie year and he showed us flashes. Very odd trajectory, very weird career path, but I certainly can't put him into the bust category. He's been underperforming, underwhelming, but certainly not a bust. Onto the 2019 number 1 overall pick, we got Kyler Murray. So 2019, very similar to Baker, comes in, not an incredible rookie year by any means, but certainly above average for rookie. And I will say, unlike Baker, Kyler's never had that big fall off afterwards. Kyler Murray is just so quick, fun to watch. Kyler Murray also just has that X factor to his game that not a lot of players in league history even could say they have. He truly is, it's hard to explain. He's just twitchy. Sophomore year, takes another jump, almost throws 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Not a huge jump, but a jump nonetheless. And then in 2021, another big jump, you know, really taking command of the offense. There was even a point of time really in this season where I think people were kind of saying to themselves, Kyler Murray's looking like an MVP caliber player. Obviously, then the wheels started to fall off the second half of the season. The Cliff Kingsbury effect. And then last year, the injury, we don't have a lot of sample size on it. But Kyler Murray's still showing us flashes, showing us he's a very good quarterback, doing things that are elite. Don't get me wrong though. There are certainly times that Kyler Murray plays games and you're like, wow, that certainly wasn't his best. There are times he shows up a little inconsistent. Kyler Murray's a good quarterback with all the tools to be an elite quarterback. And when you look at the fact that, hey, look, you know, he's already been a 2-time Pro Bowler, offensive rookie of the year. The floor for Kyler Murray is a star player. Onto the 2020 first overall pick, Joe Burrow. Okay, so again, we're getting to the players where we don't have a lot of sample size in their career. The accolades and certain things about them, they're just not a little underwhelming. In Joe Burrow's case, okay, we got comeback player of the year, we got the Pro Bowl, you know, in the Super Bowl appearance, AFC champion. We're going to work with Joe Burrow's college career, legendary college career. We're going to gauge the future here. And what do we know about Joe Burrow? He's an absolute absolute gunslinger. Not only that, he's poised and incredibly intelligent, which to me is like, that's the combo you're looking for in a quarterback at the end of the day. All the talent he has as part of him is just the cherry on top at that point. There's no doubt about it. Joe Burrow is the Bengals franchise guy. He almost led them to back-to-back Super Bowls, and I have no doubt he'll lead them back to the Super Bowl at some point in his career again. Look, you might hate me for saying it right now if you're an AFC North fan that's a rival to the Bengals. Joe Burrow is going to be a legendary player for the Bengals. It is what it is. You know, you might not like it. You might say I'm cat, but I'm not. Joe Burrow is going to be a legendary player. You come back to this in 10 years, it will have panned out. Onto the 2021 first overall pick, Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, we got to gauge for him too, because like the sample size is so small. But again, just like Joe Burrow, we'll take what we know from college, what we already know about him. Very much like Joe Burrow, just composed in the pocket, very intelligent quarterback. All of the boxes checked as far as measurables. Showed us that he's comfortable in the clutch, comfortable leading those game-winning drives. You know, you might hate me for saying it. The future of Trevor Lawrence is to be a legendary player for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, I'm struggling with the sample size, but you sure enough come back to this in 10 years, it's gonna hit. We got the young guns going legendary tier, just like that Joe Burrow one. On to last year's draft, the 2022 first overall pick, Trayvon Walker. I literally only have the 1 year this year in the NFL, you know, a couple years ago on Georgia's defense. What do we know about Trayvon? He is a physical freak, upper 0.1 percentile athlete, and he always has been. He's always stood out that, hey, look, that's a defensive lineman that's gonna go chase down a running back in the flat, go chase a receiver 40 yards down the field. He's got a lot of freaky intangibles about him. Now, hold on, because intangibles don't just carry you as a football player, unfortunately. In terms of production, even in college, Trayvon Walker has never been an incredibly productive athlete. Let me also say this, though. That's hugely in part because Georgia's defense just rotates. But now, here in the NFL, still the same concept, and it was less rotation, more just getting reps. He's still a little bit raw. I know that he can make a humongous jump this year, but going off of what I already know is that last year, unfortunately, was underwhelming. I could say it was average, but I don't want to say that because of the expectations we have for him. Do I think he's going to be an underwhelming player his whole career? Absolutely not. I really don't. But that's the thing too. Do I think he's going to be average? I think he could end up being better than that. He certainly fits right into this weird range where he could be a star player. It'd be a stretch, but put himself into a legendary tier if he just keeps growing. But right now, he's underwhelming. And again, I know this sounds a little unfair because with the quarterbacks, I was gauging it off the future. It's a lot harder for me to gauge that future with somebody who's playing in the trenches and that hasn't already showed me a big leap. I'm going to put Trayvon Walker into the underwhelming category, but he certainly could be one of the guys on this list that makes the biggest leap. He could go from underwhelming to S tier to legendary tier, and I could have been totally wrong about this. But again, for what I know right now, I just have to do it like this. And then finally, onto this year's #1 overall pick, Bryce Young. And obviously, I have no sample size of NFL Bryce Young, so I have to only use an insight in what I know about Bryce, gauging what I think he's going to do in the future. So this one right here, this one could be a shit shoot. But you know what? We're having fun. We got to at least give it a shot, right? I see Bryce Young being a great player for the Panthers for a long time. Now, I sure as hell I'm not going to slide him in legendary tier because if he doesn't pan out, I'm not being put on the record that I have him in legendary tier. Forget all that. But I'll tell you what, I do think Bryce Young is going to be a really good player in the league for a long time, as I've been saying. He'll be a staple for the Panthers for a very long time. This young core, you look back and be like, those were the Bryce Young days. I really do believe that. Bryce Young for me very comfortably. I'm going to slide him right here into the star tier because I do think Bryce Young is going to be a star in the National Football League. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in with us today. We hope you guys had a lot of fun. Got more tier lists coming for you guys in the future. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you drop a like, drop a sub. Helps us out a ton. Turn those notifications on, and we will see you guys next time.